What's up, guys? It's TheDuckChris here. I'm back with another ramble. Today we are reviewing the next rewards blog version 2. The updated rewards blog has just been released today. It's the 8th of November. And I'm just going to be going through each of the updates, each of the rewards, and reviewing them on a scale of 1 to 10 and an overall review at the end. Just a quick note, I got my wisdom teeth out recently, so if I sound a bit different, that's why. So let's get into it. The first thing I want to talk about is the prologue. So this power creep prologue, no spoilers, power creep prologue says, it's become clear from your feedback that you feel it's time for a new item to claim the spotlight. Overall, this approach is what they're saying is they want big ticket items to feel rewarding while keeping old content relevant wherever possible. This overall approach is a 10 out of 10. This is exactly what we want from new content. We want big, rewarding items. We want old content to stay at least somewhat relevant as much as possible. And I think that that is 100% what they should be doing here. Now, going right into the rewards, Torva is the number one reward to be talking about. And this is similarly relevant with everything we just talked about. Torva is a 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10 for Torva. It's a new best in slot melee armor, plus 6 strength for the full set over our current best in slot melee. That's Bandos top bottom, plus the face guard or Inquisitor full armor. It has no crush bonus whatsoever. It only has 0 attack bonuses, which is good because it means Inquisitor is still relevant for hitting specs and potentially at Nightmare, although I'm not sure. I haven't done any calcs with Nightmare Scythe Crush versus Torva Scythe Crush or Torva Mace Crush. That remains to be seen. But overall, I'm sure Inquisitor will still be good for some things, like, of course, landing that Bandos, or landing that Warhammer spec. Torva comes in as a broken item with Bandos pieces broken down to give the components needed to finish off the Torva. This is good. In my opinion, it's good to have Bandos have some role in creating Torva, and I think that breaking them down as opposed to just directly attaching is better flavor wise. But one thing I would change here is the number of components that you're getting per piece. The chest plate currently giving 3 and the tassets giving 2 really doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I understand that their value is different right now, in terms of the tassets being more, but the chest plate being more desired. It's very complicated where Bandos is right now, but overall, they have the same drop rate. They come into the game at the same rate. Then they should be sinking out of the game at the same rate. So they should be the same amount of components, in my opinion. If you want to make them both 3 components, because it says that you're going to need 6 components to repair, or 5 components to repair the entire Torva, set. I think that should also be changed. So just make the helm 2 components the same as the chest and plate legs, and make the tassets also 3 components. Therefore, you just get a tassets and a BCP, and you can make the full Torva set, which is the same as right now, but it wouldn't have an unnecessarily different value for the 2 armor pieces. They've said that they don't want Bandos boots to give components, which I understand to a degree because they're way cheaper. But if you think about it really long term, Bandos boots, they do drop at the same rate as the other Bandos pieces. And right now they're pretty much useless. Yes, you can make them into Guardian boots, but Guardian boots are extremely niche. And of course, the other part of Guardian boots is the expensive part, where Bandos boots are approaching alch value. So ultimately, if you did want to give maybe even 2 for chestplate tassets and then 1 for the boots, I think that would be fine. Or 3 and 1, something like that. I think there's definitely space for the boots to also give components. But that's about it for that. So let's also, I also just wanted to quickly mention that it's going to be a 90 smithing requirement to break down Bandos components. but that's only really relevant for Iron Men because everyone... actually, no, it says 90 smithing to add them to the Torva. But yeah, again, it's only relevant for Iron Men because everyone else, all parts of this is tradable. The broken, the components, and the repaired are all tradable. And also it's a non-degrading Torva as far as I can tell, which is good because, we don't necessarily need it to be degrading. So let's move on. Torva, 9 out of 10. The Zarya Van Braces. So this is pretty much the only thing from the past blog that has not received any changes. Pretty much, I would say it's a 10 out of 10. Zarya Van Braces best in slot. Van Braces for range, 10 out of 10 reward. They are, just a straight up best in slot, no degrading. They're powerful enough. As we've seen, range strength is one of those stats that adds up very quickly, especially with the blowpipe. +1 prayer is definitely nice. 45 defense is really good because, with something like Van Braces, like there's no real reason. They don't add a lot of defense to your armor, so there's no real reason to have a high defense requirement. Great, 10 out of 10. No issues. Zarya Crossbow. I love this item. Look at it. The concept art is so sick. I'm going to give this item an 8 out of 10. It's a new niche best in slot, being a best in slot crossbow. It's only a +10 range over the ACB, and it doesn't have any added strength bonus. It's a 5 tick still, so you're not going to get similar DPS from this that you would get from something like the Bofa, the Blowpipe, or the T-Bow at all. It's not even close. However, the bolt effect is extremely powerful. The Zarya special effect passively increases all bolt effects by 10%, and the special attack will guaranteed trigger a bolt effect if you successfully hit the target, passing the accuracy. So what does this mean? Basically, the bolt effect has always been random in RuneScape, in Old School, and even in RS3. The bolt effect, we have some different bolts, and they're all very powerful effects, but you never really know when they're going to come about because it's random. This changes all that. So not only are your Ruby bolts going to hit for 110 damage cap, your Diamond bolts are going to hit 10% more. Your Dragon bolts are going to hit 10% more. Opal bolts, your Onyx bolts are going to hit 10% more and heal you more. Here are some scenarios where that is very impressive. Not just using those, but also being able to do it whenever you want, as long as you have 75% special attack energy. Say you're facing Zuck. Whenever you need a Ruby, you can just pop the Ruby. If you need a heal, you can pop an Onyx. This is very important, especially when the blowpipe has been reduced in effectiveness, so maybe the blowpipe special attack is not as important as it once was. People are maybe trying to get a little more comfortable with flicking the minions instead of just bursting down the ranger as fast as possible. And you want to save that special attack for a Ruby bolt with that guaranteed 110 damage. And this is, not only is it competitive with the blowpipe spec for something like Zuck, it might be better. But either way, it's a great trade-off. It's something that's going to be really interesting. At other bosses, you have burst DPS at any time. You have Dragon, Diamond, Opal bolts. Like, these are the bolts that are going to do a lot of damage. If you can hit high when you pop your special attack. And this is even, not considering bosses that get the Ruby spec. This is like any monster at all. In PvP also, the bolts become an extremely powerful KO option. It's comparable to a ballista special attack, but you don't even need a switch for the ballista. The ballista being like, I think 7 ticks or 6 or 7 ticks on rapid. It's a very slow weapon, and it's not something that you can just quote unquote rag bolt with. Whereas the ACB, even as it is now, with the random special bolt special attacks, is a very powerful PvP weapon. So having 10% more on your bolt specs and also being able to trigger it whenever you want with 75% special attack energy, I think this becomes immediately the best in slot range special weapon, and it's extremely powerful in PvP. So overall, I think this weapon is very strong for what it is. It's a niche best in slot, but it's a good niche. We'll have to see how it works out at Nex and in PVM in general. And ultimately, I'm really in favor of this weapon because ultimately, if it is underwhelming at all, it can always just be buffed a little bit later. Maybe you add 5% range strength or something like that to make it a little bit better. But ultimately, it's already quite good. And it'll just need some testing to see how cool that bolt effect really is. So that's an 8 out of 10. Moving on, the Ancient God Sword. So I've talked a lot about this God Sword on my channel already. And I think this God Sword still sucks. 4 out of 10 for the God Sword. Overall, my main problem is not, the changes they've made to it. It's more just the overall approach. The overall approach of making it a niche PvP spec weapon when Nex is a step up from other God Wars bosses just really isn't doing it for me. It'll automatically be the worst drop from the boss, and it misses the chance to make the hilt an iconic and desired item like at other God Wars bosses in the past. When you get the Bandos hilt, when you get the Sarah hilt, like that's the best item. Well, maybe not at Bandos, but it's like one of the best items. When you used to get the Armadil hilt, it was definitely the best item from Armadil. Not so much nowadays, but the thing is that the hilt being an exciting and iconic drop is something that we could really use again. And I think while I agree one of the things they've said here is that they're deciding to keep the changes to this item modest because now that they've changed the entire loot table, they hoping that the changes to the other items will bring up the overall effect enough that the God Sword doesn't need to be that good. And that's fine, and I think I do agree with that. But overall, the God Sword hilt, I would like to be an item that everyone wants to get. Would like it to be something that's exciting. It doesn't have to be, the new best in slot melee weapon for every scenario, but I think something that is at least better than just a very niche PvP spec when PvP weapons, as we've seen by the AGS, are already not holding enough value to be a good drop from a boss. So overall, I think the Ancient God Sword, 4 out of 10, could really use another look in terms of overall design. Blood Essence is the next reward. So there's just some clarifications here about what the point is. It semi-rare drop by Nex and various other monsters, both tradable and stackable. I think this reward is an 8 out of 10. This is an underrated reward. As it's tradable, the value of it will be tied to the value of blood runes, but as it takes some time to turn from the blood essence into the extra runes, it will still make blood rune crafting more profitable, while adding an additional benefit of doing Nex and the other monsters in the dungeon for Iron Men. And this is something that has worked pretty well in RS3. For those of you who don't know, they had a mining and smithing rework where instead of ores, you're dropped spirits that double your ore whenever you mine them, and it transfers some of the profit from PVM onto skilling. And while I know that a lot of people aren't as enthusiastic about blood rune crafting as a method in terms of how AFK it is and how easy it is to get experience and money, transferring profit from PVM to skilling in a way that makes sense for both methods is definitely something I'm in favor of. And I think that over time, rewards like this are going to be the way forward instead of just dumping 2 million blood runes onto every drop table. So the Blood Essence, 8 out of 10, very underrated reward. Nile Shards, I'm not going to talk about the actual shards, but just because they're only useful to make this and to charge the crossbow. But the Ancient Brew is just another use for Dwarf Weed, and it makes a potion that boosts magic by 5% plus 2 and restores prayer by 10% plus 2. So it's like a bit better than a normal prayer pot, I think, but like ultimately I don't see where you would need to use this, especially because it drains your attack, strength, and defense. So you can't even really use it as a restore. You would if you're having brews like Sarah brews in Inferno, for example, like you still have to bring super restores. Like maybe you would bring one of these for a bit of extra prayer, before you pop the super restore to restore your stats back up. But really, it's just like not useful anywhere in my mind, especially like I can't think of a single place where you would want to use this to restore your prayer without using a super restore to restore your defense, unless you're just maging something and it doesn't care about your defense. And I don't know about anywhere that does that. So 2 out of 10. Interesting that they were trying to come up with a new potion, but 2 out of 10 because it's not useful at all. Ecumenical Key Shards, 1 out of 10. Why? What is the point? You know, there's kill count is not that hard to get in terms of like getting God Ward's kill count for bosses. If they just want to do this for like, let's see what they said in the original blog. They just did not say anything. They just said, just gather these. Not sure where they come from. I don't know if they come from the boss. If they come from the boss in terms of like, it's maybe their way to try and alleviate the kill count factor and get you back into the boss fight faster after you leave, maybe that's kind of interesting, but I still don't think it's a very good reward at all. Maybe a 2 out of 10 if it comes from the boss, but otherwise, why? What is the point? Ancient Ceremonial Robes, I'm going to touch on just, they didn't mention it here, so I'm not sure if they are scrapping them or not. They really should, because ultimately the way that they were in the last blog was a 1 out of 10. And I'll just pull that up one second. It consists of 5 pieces. They have the same stats as monk robes, and they are not useful for anything. They don't bypass the kill count. They drop from every monster. So it's basically just pointless collection log things. Fashionscape maybe, but overall it doesn't do anything. I think if you want to give them some kind of useful effect or stats or bypassing the kill count, like that would be interesting. But if not, just scrap them entirely because there's no point. Overall, this blog, as I've been a bit down on the last couple of rewards, overall, I would still say this is a 9 out of 10 blog. Some rewards are still underwhelming, but the overall result is jagex is listening to the players, and at least the majority of the rewards will be extremely useful and rewarding to obtain. And I don't know about you, but it makes me extremely excited to go and face next, to test out the new rewards, to test out Torva, to test out the crossbow. I think these are going to be extremely exciting rewards to obtain and to use. And overall, this blog is amazing and one of the best blogs we've had recently. So 9 out of 10 on the blog, and that's about it. Overall, I think that this blog is a very positive experience, and I'm looking forward to what they're going to say on the Q&A about it later this week. Based on what they say, we might have answers to some of these questions, so I could post another update at that point. But otherwise, feel free to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on Twitter, and let me know what you think in the comments or there. Until next time, it's been TheDuckChris, and take it easy.